Okay, what we're going to be doing today is we're just talking about Chapter 1. Just a quick overview to make sure that you're cleared up and you understand what's going on. So when we look at this, the first thing we need to know is we need to understand the difference between data and datum. Data is actually the collection, and it's the plural, and datum is just one. Now, another really important thing about data is being able to find the context of it. A lot of times when we have to start answering our problems in the future, you're going to have to be able to answer in the context. So context is the W's, which is who, what, when, where, why, and then how. Okay, there's two that are mandatory that you have to be able to tell the context. The other ones, sometimes they're going to give them to you, sometimes they're not. And the first one is who. You have to know who the study is about. Okay, the second one is what. What is the study or the experiment looking for? The third one that's important is the how. And really the how is important just so you know whether or not it was done correctly or accurately, and you'll be able to use the data collection for things in the future. Okay, so let's talk about the who's some more. So the who's, these are the cases, and there's three different things you can have. You can have respondents, subjects or participants, or experimental uses. So respondents are people from surveys. Subjects or participants are people from experiments. Experimental units are animals, plants, etc., which are done in experiments, which makes sense because it's experimental units. Okay? The what, these are the variables. These are the cases. You have to look at each thing. And these cases are the characteristics of each case. So there's two things you can have. You can have categories, which is categorical. And categories could be something like maybe remember in our survey the category of female or male, left-handed, right-handed, conservative, liberal, or moderate. The other thing you have is quantitative, which is counts. So how many siblings, how many countries, how many states have you been to? Whenever you have counts, you must also have a units. Now, if it doesn't say what the unit is, then you just say that it's not specified. But a lot of times, you're going to know what the unit is. Okay? All right, what we're going to do lastly is we're going to take a look at a problem. So do you think offering opportunities to learn computer science is more important, just as important, or less important to a student's future success than the required classes like math, science, history, and English? Okay, so let's figure this out. The who. So the who is who they surveyed, the people they surveyed, which are the parents, teachers, principals, and superintendents. Those are the who. The what is what they asked. They asked them if they found if it was important, not as important, less than. Those are the categories that you could have, which is categorical. Okay. The when, well, it says right there that it's between November and December 2014. The where, well, it doesn't specify where, but a Gallup poll. Gallup is a well-known company in the United States that does surveys. So whenever you see a Gallup poll, we're going to say it's the U.S. unless they tell you somewhere else. But usually Gallup polls are strictly U.S. The why, well, you're going to have to kind of read the context of it, but they're trying to find out people's feelings about computer science, and it comes from the beginning and it tells you what they're asking. The how, well, Gallup usually does surveys, so I'm going to say it's with the survey. Okay? So in summary, what we have is context, And remember, who and what is mandatory for the context. The when, where, why are things that sometimes you have and sometimes you won't have. If you aren't given the when, where, and why, you need to kind of try and figure it out. You may sometimes be able to make assumptions. Otherwise, you will say that it's not provided. And the last one is how. And remember, how is how the survey or the experiment was done. And later on, that's going to help us say whether or not it was a reliable data. So remember, the who are the cases, and that's who they studied. The who can be respondents if it's for a survey, subjects if it's people, for experiment, and then experimentals if it's animals or plants, etc. for an experiment. All right, last thing we need to talk about are the what, and just remember what are the characteristics about each case. And the characteristics are actually the variables. And so the variables can be categorical, which is for categories and where things fall into a certain category. And then the other one is quantitative, where they're number values. And when you have quantitative variables, you need to make sure that you provide the unit. If you do not have the unit, then you need to say that it was not provided.